Toto. Good stuff, huh? So much to do here. I hope you're enjoying it. We sure have. I've enjoyed every second I've been here. What I want to do now is take the honor and the privilege of introducing our next guest. This is somebody whom I have grown to respect so much over the years. He's a very intuitive, a very insightful man. You know him as the dirty job guy. He's a great friend of scouting. He is an Eagle Scout, and he's a great friend. I want you to welcome with me Mike Rowe. Mike, come on.
Hello, everybody. Is anybody having any fun at all? I can't be sure. Because man, oh man, if you're not having fun here, I don't know what to tell you. So nice to be here with you. You're standing up because there's no place to sit, is that right? All right, well, I'll try not to talk too long this time. I might have seen some of you before. There was a little event 3 years ago down at AP. Anybody remember? You guys there? Unbelievable. That means I'm going to have to come up with a new speech. That's too bad. All right, so there's so many different ways for me to say to you today what it is I would like to say to you, but I'll just try and keep it pithy. I'll try and make it simple. For those of you who were there at the 100th Jamboree, my message was pretty simple then, and it's pretty simple today. In fact, everything you need to know in advance about what I'm going to say is written on my shirt and on my hat. Some people prefer to speak with a teleprompter. Some people like to have notes. Some people just like to memorize their whole thing. I just like to write it on my wardrobe so I don't forget. But for those of you who were there 3 years ago on the occasion of your 100th birthday, you might remember that I had some fun with the Scout Law. I said that I was a big fan of trustworthy, loyal, helpful, and friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful's great, thrifty, brave, very important, reverent, absolutely, but that whole business with clean, right? I just couldn't for the life of me get it straight in my head how a guy who was hosting a show called Dirty Jobs could take a solemn oath to be clean. And so I thought, well, it might be fun to say a scout is clean but not afraid to get dirty. And I think somebody up the food chain must have been listening because, look, it's written right here. The Boy Scouts made a shirt for me. It says, a scout is clean but not afraid to get dirty. And underneath it, it says something really cool and really personal. Maybe some of you have seen it. It says, the Dirt Patrol. Now, to me, the Dirt Patrol sounds like something that should exist in the Boy Scouts of America. And I say that because, you know, I'm just thinking of the 8,000 volunteers who have been here now for over a week, you know, living 4 to a tent. I'm thinking about the people who always volunteer for the dirty jobs. And I'm thinking about my own childhood. When I was a kid, we used to talk about the Dirt Patrol in my family. It was my grandfather, my dad, me, and my 2 younger brothers. My mother called us the Dirt Patrol. And I'll tell you a true story. I was 12 years old. I got up one morning, did what I always did when I was 12 years old in February. I got up, went out to the porch, got some wood, came in and started a fire in the wood stove. My dad was one of those guys who liked to heat his whole house with a wood stove. So first one up goes to make a fire. And then, of course, I went to the bathroom. Now, we had one bathroom in our house. I told myself not to make this all about toilet humor, but I really can't help it. It's a true story. I went to the bathroom, took care of business, stood up, flushed the toilet. I stood there. I watched it go down. I don't know why I do that. I'm fascinated by it. And I'm standing there, just waking up, and the toilet made an amazing sound, a sound I'd never heard our toilet make before. It was like the devil was clearing his throat or something, right? And then there was an explosion. I'm not kidding you. A second later, that which was in the toilet and vanishing suddenly reappeared with extreme violence and flew out and within a second, there I was, 12 years old, covered with my own poo, right? So I'm stunned, you know, and I go get my dad. I'm like, Dad, I'm covered with my own poo. And he said, yeah, you're disgusting. This is a problem. I said, what are we going to do? And my mother came in and said, oh, yeah, well, we're basically going to get the dirt patrol together. And what that meant was my grandfather, who lived across the lawn, right, he was like a superhero. My granddad, you guys know him. You haven't met him, but he's just one of those guys who was born hardwired. He could fix anything. He only went to the 8th grade, but by the time he was 30, he was a bricklayer, he was a steam fitter, he was an electrician, he was a plumber, he was a mechanic, he was a welder. He could do it all. And I loved him. And he came over, and with my dad, we went out front to try and fix the broken toilet. Now, this was incredible because it was a school day. And my father said, look, you're going to take the day off. You're going to work with me and Pop, and we're going to fix this. And I'll spare you all the details, but for the next 8 or 10 hours, it was great. My father had this thing called a ditch witch, and he let me operate it. Basically dug a trench in our front lawn looking for the problem in the pipe that had caused the toilet to explode. And it was so much fun digging this ditch. And then with my grandfather, we found the problem in the pipe, and we made the cut, and then we put in a new pipe, and there was welding. And I heard my dad say a bad word, and we laughed. And there was more welding, and there were blisters, and there was pain. And my mother made a big thermos of hot coffee, and she brought it out to us. I drank my very, very first cup of coffee, right? It was fantastic. I felt like a man. I got my hands dirty, and I was a part of fixing a problem. And I decided that day, that was the day I decided I knew what I was going to do with the rest of my life. I knew I was going to learn a trade. Sit down, guys. You're making me nervous. Take a load off, honestly. Take a load off, all right? This is the day. I love you back. I love you back. That was the day I knew what I wanted to do at 12 years old. And so for the next 4 or 5 or 6 years, I did everything I could to follow in my granddad's footsteps. I went through junior high, I went through high school, I took the wood shop, I took the metal shop, I took auto shop, and you know what I learned? I learned just because you want to be good at something doesn't mean you're going to be good at something. C- in wood shop, D+ in metal shop, got a C in auto shop. I was getting frustrated. I was starting to wonder maybe there was something wrong with me. I'm 17 years old at this point. I'm a senior in high school. And I take the college tests that they make everybody take, you know, and I'm just lost. I'm confused. And I got a call to go see the guidance counselor. His name was Mr. Dunbar, all right? Mr. Dunbar wanted to talk to me about my future. And he said, look, based on your scores here, we know exactly what you should do, Mike. James Madison is a great school. It's a great 4-year school. You should go there. Or maybe the University of Maryland. You should go there too. And I'm sitting there thinking, look, that's a lot of money. And I don't want to borrow money, and my folks don't have a ton of money, and I just don't know what I want to do. So I said, Mr. Dunbar, I think maybe the smart thing for me to do is go to a 2-year school. Right? Just maybe learn a trade, maybe just figure out what I want to do at a community college. And he said, Mike, that is below your potential. You don't want to do that. And then he gave me the worst advice I've ever heard in my life. He pointed to a poster on his wall. I brought it with me. You want to see it? You're going to love this. You're going to love this. Thing hanging back here somewhere. Oh, it's right here. Beautiful. Thank you. That could have been awkward. This is the poster Mr. Dunbar showed me. Okay? It's a picture of a guy with a diploma standing next to a guy with a wrench. Look how happy the guy with the diploma looks. And look how sad the guy with the wrench looks. And check out the worst advice in the world on the bottom of this poster. Work smart, not hard. Right? Mr. Dunbar says, Mike, which one of these two guys do you want to be? And all I could think of was, well, I thought some bad things. I didn't say them because the scout is kind and courteous and whatnot. But I thought, man, that's my grandfather he's talking about. And so I went home and I talked to my folks about Mr. Dunbar, and I talked about what I thought would be best for me to do. And it was decided that, you know what, Mike, you're right. You go to a community college, don't worry about that work smart, not hard stuff, right? And I did that, and I started to learn a trade, but not the trade you're thinking about. I started to learn the stuff that made sense to my brain because my grandfather did give me some good advice. He said, you know something? There are lots of different toolboxes. Get a different one. So I went to college. I learned how to sing. I learned how to write. I learned how to talk in front of people. I learned how to act. And I started to learn about television, something I didn't know anything about at all, but figured, well, you got to learn something. And then I went to work. And to make a long story short, about 15, 20 years went by, and I started to do pretty good. I worked for some of the big networks. I worked for National Geographic. I worked for the Discovery Channel off and on. I worked for CBS and NBC. I did freelancing. I started to approach my career like it was a trade, right? And I started to do pretty good. And the next thing you know, I'm 40 years old. I promise you, there's a point to all this. I'm 40 years old. I wake up one morning. I'm working for CBS on a show called Evening Magazine. It's a great gig, okay? It's a fantastic show. I'm living in San Francisco. I can go wherever I want. I'm very busy. I'm feeling pretty good about my life. I get up. I go to the bathroom one morning. I take care of business. I flush the toilet. I stand there, I watch it go away the way I always do. And then the toilet made the same sound it made all those years ago when I was 12 years old. And I swear it exploded again. Everything that was in the toilet came flying back on me. And just like that, once again, I'm 40 years old and covered in my own poo. This is a problem. It's a problem because I got to go to work. And my grandfather, he doesn't live next door anymore. So I get on the phone, I get the yellow pages, I call a plumber, I say, look, my toilet just exploded, okay? I need somebody out here. They said, fine, leave a key under the mat, just put a check on the counter. I said, fine. I went to work, I came home. My toilet is fixed. There's not a sign of the mess. The check is gone. I call my mom just to catch up a little bit. See how Pop's doing. He's 92 at this point, right? And I tell my mother the story about the exploding toilet, and she laughs, and she says, so the plumber came over and saved the day again. And I said, yeah, he did. And she said, what was his name? And I said, you know what? I have no idea. And she said, well, didn't you meet him? And I said, no, I didn't. I was at work. And she said, oh, that's too bad. And I said, yeah, it is, actually. Now that I think about it, it's kind of weird. And that brings me to my hat. My hat says, profoundly disconnected. And I want to talk about that for just a little bit, but that was the moment, if anybody cares, when I decided that dirty jobs might be an interesting thing to do. Because how could I have become so far removed from knowing exactly what I wanted to do, from knowing exactly how I wanted to work, from being so sure of all those things when I was 12, suddenly I'm 40, and I don't even know the name of my own plumber. I'm so disconnected from the very things I thought that I used to want to do and be, that all I can do is leave a check on the counter and wait for somebody else to come in and do the work for me. So it really struck me in that moment. It made me think, you know, I've been working in television now for almost 20 years. What would happen if I did a show where I could have my name in the title, because that's kind of cool, right? But where I wasn't really the star, where the star of the show was the guy who comes over to the house and does the work when you're not home, the electrician, the plumber. the welder, the skilled worker. That's what Dirty Jobs was. That's how Dirty Jobs started. I just thought it would be fun to find some people that reminded me of my grandfather and do a show around them. Maybe they were farmers, maybe they were miners, maybe they were bridge painters or skull cleaners, maybe they were road workers. It didn't matter. But we were only going to do 3 hours. We put the thing on the air, and I got 10,000 letters from people saying, Mike, you should come and meet my grandfather, my dad, my cousin, my brother, my uncle, my sister, whatever. Because they do this work, and it would be great to shine a light on them. So for the next 9 years, well, that's what I've been doing. I was right in the middle of it the last time I talked to the Boy Scouts 3 years ago. We went to every state. We focused on every major industry, and we did 300 different dirty jobs. And we just wrapped it up earlier this year because, well, my knee's falling apart, my shoulder hurts, everything hurts, to tell you the truth. But it was so much fun. And I've been thinking about why was it fun? I mean, really, it was hard work, but everybody I met seemed to be having a good time. Everybody seemed to love getting their hands dirty. And I realized that what I'd been doing for 9 years basically was trying to put the Dirt Patrol back together. I was out there still looking for my grandfather and my dad and people who were kind of in on the joke, people who understood that it's okay to get dirty, that the dirt eventually washes off. The dirt's the thing that keeps us connected. I started getting thank you letters years ago from people we profiled on the show. Electricians would call me all the time. Farmers would call me all the time. A couple months ago in New York, I was walking down Central Park South, a garbage truck. I heard that squeal, you know, they make when the garbage truck stops real quick. Guy jumped off the back, biggest garbage man I ever seen, about 6'8", giant guy, way over 300 pounds. Looks at me, says, Mike Rowe. I'm like, yeah. Runs up to me. Doesn't even break his stride, grabs me, lifts me up off the ground, and says, man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate what you do. I said, dude, put me down. He said, no, man, listen to me. Do you have any idea how dramatically my love life has improved since you did a show about garbage men? Like, I didn't know. But this is the kind of thing that's been happening now for years. And it's got me thinking, why are people grateful for the show? Nobody had ever thanked me before for doing television. People blamed me for doing television. But people really seem to love this show. And I think it's because I'm not the only one who became disconnected from my plumber. I think there are a lot of people in the country who no longer really understand their relationship to where their food comes from, or where their energy comes from, or what sustainability really is. People aren't connected to the environment the way they used to be. And most importantly, people aren't connected to the definition of a good job. This is what I heard for the last 9 years wherever I went from business owners. I would hear about how hard it was to find people, not people who were educated, but people who were skilled. Because something has been happening in the country where we celebrate one form of knowledge over the next. And that's why I dug this poster out of the archives, because this is still what's going on. We're still telling kids that this degree is your only hope for a happy, successful career. And in our minds, we still see this guy over here as some kind of vocational consolation prize. It's crazy. And you know what it's doing? It's causing problems. There's a thing in this country called the skills gap. Anybody hear of the skills gap? No, you've never heard of the skills gap. You're kidding me. My friend, I'm going to open your eyes today, all right? The skills gap is the fact that there are 3 million jobs available right now for people who are willing to learn a skill and get their hands dirty. They're out there right now, these jobs. How come nobody's going after them? I don't get it. I think it's because a big hunk of the country is disconnected. Now, I'm not talking about you guys. You guys are connected. The Boy Scouts get it. The Boy Scouts have always gotten it. Future Farmers of America, they get it. Skills USA, they get it. But the Boy Scouts, they really get it. Because my earliest experience in the Boy Scouts was getting not merit badges, but skill awards. Celebrating a skill. That's the thing that we need to reconnect with, because that's the thing that we've become disconnected from. We have to find a way to make Mr. Dunbar's advice go upside down. He was completely wrong. Are you kidding me? Work smart, not hard? Has anybody heard that expression before today? Work smart, not hard? Right. Everybody's got their hands up. Later on, because you guys are connected, go ahead and take your phones and Google work smart, not hard. You'll see this advice is everywhere. It's on merchandise. It's the title of books. It's all over the place. I think, now this is just a theory, but I think our country has taken Mr. Dunbar's advice. I think there's a big hunk of our country who believes it's possible to succeed without working really hard. Working smart is great, but where in the world did it become okay not to work hard? So I started thinking, well, look, I have one guy with a TV show, and now that TV show's over. What can I do to get that message out there? Who can I ask for help? I'm thinking maybe the Boy Scouts could help, right? I mean, I'm just thinking maybe the Boy Scouts could help. So here's what I did. I thought about Mr. Dunbar's poster, and I asked myself, what would it look like if it weren't so daggone stupid? What would the worst advice in the world look like if it were actually the best advice in the world? Now keep in mind something when I show you this. Right now, anybody know what $1 trillion is? Yeah, it's a lot, okay? $1 trillion of student loans exist because kids who were in my position a long time ago borrowed money in order to go to a college that they weren't quite ready to go to and study really hard and pay a fortune to get an education that, well, it was awfully expensive. Now, don't think for a second I'm standing here in front of you saying education and college are a problem. No way. After my community college, I eventually went back. I did get a degree, but I didn't get it until I knew exactly two things for sure. A, I could afford it, and B, I knew what I wanted to study. So rather than saying work smart, not hard, what if we were to say work smart and hard? And that's me, by the way. That's me, by the way, holding my diploma down by my side. It's not because I'm not proud to have it. It's just because so many kids today are in debt because they've paid a lot of money to get an education without a skill. Now, standing next to me is a young man who went to a trade school, didn't get any debt, was immediately hired, and he's out there working right now. To me, that's the poster that should have been in my guidance counselor's office. This is the poster that should be in troop rooms around the country. This is the advice that people ought to be hearing. You can't separate smart work from hard work. And every time you try and do it, something really, really crappy happens. Like a toilet blows up in your face and you don't know what to do about it. I was just standing backstage looking at the video of all you guys doing everything from woodworking to welding. A kid stopped me yesterday to say how excited he was. He was welding aluminum. You know how hard it is to weld aluminum properly? You know how much money you can make out there in the real world if you know how to weld? I was talking to Randall a little while ago, who was kind enough to introduce me, and he was saying, you know, at AT&T, skilled work is just as important as anything else. And the opportunities are everywhere. I ran into anybody here at Caterpillar, the big company? Yeah, right, remember last year, or 3 years ago, Caterpillar brought me to stage in one of those big giant things and dumped me out there. It was fantastic. Caterpillar's got jobs right now. They can't find anybody who's willing to do them. Heavy equipment mechanics, you can make a lot of money. I ran into the person who runs their dealership down in Las Vegas a couple of months ago. Like, we got 26 positions open right now. We just can't find people who are willing to learn a skill and really go to work. So look, I wanted to come here to tell you a couple of things today. First of all, the Dirt Patrol is alive and well. It's alive and well in my memory, and it's alive and well out here. Secondly, a scout is clean, but not afraid to get dirty. I know you guys know that. I know you guys believe it. Thirdly, work smart, not hard is the dumbest advice in the history of the world. Work smart and hard. Does it make sense? Yes or no? I think it makes sense too. I think the country is profoundly disconnected. I think you guys understand. I think there's an opportunity to change the way people think about skill and about work. Look, a lot of people have said a lot of nice things to you over the last week, I'm sure. You're probably used to hearing people give you great advice and tell you how great you are. You know you're great. I'm not going to blow any more sunshine up your Class A uniform. I'm going to ask you to help. I'm going to say to you that the Boy Scouts get it. And last time I was in front of you, I talked at length about what the Boy Scouts had done for me. But I wanted to come here today to suggest what you guys can do for the country. If you understand the value of hard work, and if you're not afraid to get dirty, do me a favor and be a part of this profoundly disconnected campaign. You'll notice there's a question mark here, right? What I'm really saying is, are you profoundly disconnected? I think most of the people in the country, if they're being honest, would say yes, but I think you guys are connected. Am I right? All right, Boy Scouts, I want to thank you for bringing me here today. I want to thank you for letting me tell you a story about my past and sharing a theory with you. You're smart people. You work hard. I know you're here to have a great time. I know you're having a great time, but just take this with you, okay? You're salt. You're like salt. You're the people who get it. You're out in the world. Spread the message. Work smart and hard. Say it with me. Work smart and hard. All right, you get it. My work is done. Now I'm going to walk out and shake hands with each and every one of you. You ready? No, that's not going to happen, but I am going to tell you once again, thank you so much for having me here. You guys have a great time. You're the best there is. I love you.
How about another round of applause for Mike Rowe?
Say cheese. Okay, now is that time where we welcome onto the stage our entertainers. Our entertainers for the day hail from the great state of Mississippi. Is anyone out there from the Magnolia State? They have sold over 20 million records.
They have shared the stage with several famous acts.
Been certified 6 times platinum.
Please welcome to the stage in just a moment, artists.
3 Doors Down.